The message came at 3:17 Earth Standard Time, which meant it had been drafted by someone who didn't expect me to sleep afterward. United Terran Infrastructure Authority, mandatory transfer notice. I blinked at the projection hovering above my bedside console, trying to focus on the highlighted line. Assignment: Virexia Minor Colony, Outer Helier Verge. Role: Senior Structural Systems Analyst. Status: Immediate. I rubbed my face. Virexia Minor. I had heard the name once, during a briefing about experimental cross-species settlements. It was a young colony world orbiting a pale blue star nearly 40 light-years beyond humanity's nearest established territory. It was not a human colony. It was not even a mixed one. It was, if I remembered correctly, entirely administered and populated by the Virexians, an advanced species whose social structure and biological composition differed dramatically from ours. Which raised an obvious question. Why send me? I opened the attachment. The colony's primary atmospheric stabilizer, a hybrid biomechanical structure adapted to Virexian physiology, had begun to exhibit structural drift. Minor fluctuations at first, then irregularities that threatened long-term habitability. Virexian engineers had attempted correction, but the stabilizer incorporated Terran-designed lattice algorithms. My algorithms, the ones I had helped refine during my tenure at the Interstellar Integration Lab. I leaned back against the headboard and exhaled. They weren't asking. They were relocating me. 3 weeks later, I stood inside the docking bay of the carrier vessel Solace Horizon, staring at a star I had never seen with my own eyes. Virexia Minor hung below us, like a ribbon sphere of emerald and gold. Its continents were braided with glowing rivers of bioluminescent vegetation. Thin cloud bands drifted lazily across its atmosphere. It was beautiful and completely alien. A Virexian liaison awaited me at the airlock. She was taller than I expected, nearly 7 feet, with elongated limbs and translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the ship's lighting. Beneath that semi-luminous surface, faint circulatory patterns pulsed in soft aquamarine. Her eyes were multifaceted, like polished gemstones, reflecting light at different angles. "Senior Analyst Daniel Reyes?" she asked, her voice layered with harmonic undertones. "That's me. I am Overseer Thallery. Welcome to Virexia Minor." Her gaze lingered on my face in what I had learned to interpret as curiosity rather than scrutiny. "You are the only human on this transport," she added. I had noticed. There are no others on the colony. The words landed heavier than I expected. No others. Not a Terran enclave tucked into a valley. Not a research station staffed by familiar faces. Just me. I forced a smile. I guess I'll stand out. Her inner eyelids flickered, Virexian amusement. "Yes," she said. "You will." Arrival. The first thing I noticed when we descended through the atmosphere was the light. Virexia's star emitted a slightly different spectrum than Earth's sun, shifted just enough that shadows carried a faint lavender tint. The second thing I noticed was the architecture. The colony did not rise in rigid lines and steel angles. Instead, structures curved upward like living organisms, grown rather than constructed. Semi-transparent walls allowed light to filter through layered membranes. Pathways were elevated, interwoven like vines. It felt less like a city, more like a cultivated ecosystem. "This is not what I expected," I admitted as we exited the shuttle. "What did you expect?" Thallery asked. "Metal. Reinforced platforms. Obvious infrastructure." She gestured toward the largest structure in the distance, a spiraling tower with pulsating veins of light. "That is the atmospheric stabilizer," she said. "Its visible form is only the outer membrane. The structural lattice you designed lies within." I stared at it. It was alive. Not metaphorically. Alive. Phyrexian bioengineering had integrated my mathematical framework into a semi-organic matrix that adapted dynamically to environmental shifts. And now it was destabilizing. A ripple of responsibility passed through me. How bad is it? I asked. Currently manageable. But our predictive models indicate exponential deviation within 2 planetary cycles. 2 cycles here equated to roughly 5 Earth months. Then let's get to work, I said. The residential sector assigned to me overlooked a valley of shimmering foliage. The quarters were adapted to human physiology, gravity slightly adjusted, atmosphere tuned to Terran comfort levels, nutrient synthesizer calibrated to Earth-based requirements. They had prepared thoroughly. Still, as I stood alone in that curved, semi-translucent living space, watching alien clouds drift across an alien sky, the reality settled in. No human voices in the corridors. No familiar language echoing from neighboring rooms. No accidental cultural shorthand. Just me. And them. Middle. Integration. Work began immediately. The stabilizer's core chamber lay beneath the colony, accessible through a descending spiral corridor lined with bioluminescent panels. Inside, the air hummed faintly with layered frequencies, the resonance of the living lattice adjusting itself in real time. Holographic projections mapped stress vectors across the structure. At first glance, the issue seemed minor, a fractional drift in harmonic alignment between the Terran algorithmic core and the Phyrexian biological matrix. But fractional drift compounds. Left unchecked, it would cascade. Your original design assumed inert substrates, Valerie observed as we studied the data. It was never meant to be embedded in something that evolves, I replied. Yet we evolved it. I ran a hand through my hair. That's the problem. The Phyrexians were adaptive by nature. Their technology grew, shifted, recalibrated. My algorithm had been elegant precisely because it was stable. Stability and evolution were now competing. Can you adjust it? She asked. Yes, I said slowly. But it will mean relinquishing some human control parameters. You would trust us with full integration? I glanced at her. You already trusted us with the foundation. Her gaze softened slightly. That is reciprocal. Beyond work, integration was less straightforward. Phyrexian social structures were communal, layered, and deeply interconnected. They communicated through subtle shifts in bioluminescence as much as spoken language. At communal gatherings, I was an anomaly. A solid-skinned figure among luminous forms. They were not hostile. If anything, they were fascinated. You require isolation to sleep? One asked during a shared meal cycle. Usually, I said. You do not resonate with others during rest? Not consciously. A murmur of intrigue rippled across the group. I learned their names. They learned my expressions. Slowly, curiosity replaced novelty. Still, at the end of each cycle, I returned alone to my quarters. Alone with my thoughts. Alone with the awareness that if something went wrong, there would be no human perspective to validate mine. 3 months into my assignment, the first major fluctuation hit. I was in the stabilizer core when the harmonic displays spiked violently. Deviation exceeding projections, Valerie announced. The lattice pulsed erratically, bioluminescent veins flashing in rapid, chaotic patterns. It's overcompensating, I muttered. The biological layers accelerating adaptation. Can you dampen it? Not without risking collapse. The chamber trembled slightly. Above us, I imagined the colony's sky flickering. A decision crystallized. We need to rewrite the core, I said. Valerie's gaze sharpened. That will require deep integration. I know. You will interface directly. Yes. Direct interface meant linking my neural signature to the algorithmic core, allowing it to map human cognitive patterns in real time. Risky, potentially disorienting, but faster than iterative recalibration. "I will remain with you," she said. I hesitated. This could overload. "I am aware." We stepped toward the central conduit. The interface bands adjusted to accommodate my physiology. As the link engaged, the world dissolved into light. Between minds, the lattice wasn't code anymore. It was sensation. I felt stress vectors like tension in muscle fibers. Harmonic imbalances manifested as discordant chords in my head. And beneath it all, Virexian presence. A collective awareness guiding the biological matrix. Not invasive, but present. For the first time, I understood what it meant for them to resonate. Their connection wasn't metaphorical. It was literal, and I was the discordant note. Stability, I projected instinctively. Adaptation, came the response, not in words, but in layered emotion.
We weren't arguing.
We were misaligned. I adjusted parameters, allowing variance thresholds to widen. The lattice responded, cautiously. Stress decreased incrementally. But the process wasn't painless. Feedback surged through my nervous system, and I staggered. A steadying presence anchored me. Valerie. Her bioluminescence brightened as she synchronized with the matrix. Not merging with my thoughts, but reinforcing structure. Together, her presence conveyed. And slowly, gradually, harmony reemerged. The lattice stabilized. Not rigid, not chaotic, balanced. When the interface disengaged, I collapsed to my knees. Valerie caught me before I hit the chamber floor. "You are injured," she said. "Just overloaded. You should have allowed us to assume greater control." I needed to understand. Her gaze lingered on me. And now I do. Crisis. Stability held for several weeks. Long enough for the colony to breathe. Long enough for me to believe we had succeeded. Then the transmission arrived. A mining consortium operating beyond Virexia Miner's orbit had detected valuable mineral deposits beneath the planet's southern hemisphere. They requested, politely but firmly, excavation rights. Denied. They escalated. Their orbital probes began scanning gravitational anchors that maintained Virexia's delicate tectonic balance. The stabilizer compensated at first. Then strain indicators rose again. "They will destabilize the mantle," I said as projections filled the central chamber. "They claim extraction will be minimal," Valerie replied. "They're wrong. The consortium wasn't malicious, just indifferent. To them, Virexia Minor was a resource. To the Virexians, it was home. And to me, it had become something I hadn't anticipated. Responsibility. We cannot defend militarily," Valerie said. "Our charter forbids offensive engagement. Then we make it too costly for them to continue."
How?
I stared at the stabilizer's model. If we adjust the atmospheric signature, amplify specific resonance bands, you would make the planet appear unstable. Temporarily, they'll withdraw to avoid risk. And the colony will compensate internally.
She studied me.
You would risk destabilization to prevent exploitation. Yes. A long pause. "You have adopted our perspective," she said quietly. "I live here." The adjustment required precision beyond anything we'd attempted. The stabilizer's outer membrane glowed intensely as we modified atmospheric harmonics. Orbital readings spiked. Within hours, the mining consortium transmitted urgent inquiries. Within 12, they began retreat procedures. By 24, their probes disengaged entirely. We restored atmospheric norms gradually, careful not to overshoot. When it was done, the sky returned to its gentle lavender hue. The colony endured, ending belonging. Months passed. The stabilizer evolved, not away from my design, but through it. Human algorithm and Virexian biology interwove seamlessly. The colony flourished. And somewhere along the way, I stopped counting how long I'd been the only human, because I no longer felt singular. One evening, as twin moons rose over the valley, Valerie joined me on the observation platform outside my quarters. "You received a transmission from Earth," she said. I did. "They offer reassignment." "They do." Silence settled between us, not awkward, but weighted. "You may return," she said. "I know. You would not be alone there." I watched the bioluminescent field shimmer below. "I'm not alone here." Her light pulsed softly. "You have integrated." "So have you." She tilted her head slightly. "Explain." "You adapted the colony to accommodate me. Atmosphere, quarters, nutrient synthesis. That wasn't obligation. That was intention." She considered this. "Integration is mutual." "Yes." Another pause. "Will you depart?" she asked. I thought about Earth's familiar skies, about human voices, about belonging to the majority again. Then I thought about the stabilizer's living hum beneath my feet, about the day we stood inside its chaotic resonance and chose balance together. "I relocated to a distant colony," I said slowly, "and I was the only human." Her gaze held mine, and that stopped mattering. A subtle ripple of light passed across her skin, something like relief. "I will remain," I said. "Indefinitely?" "As long as Virexia Minor will have me." Her response wasn't verbal. The faintest extension of her hand, luminous, steady. I took it, not as an outsider, not as a visitor, but as part of the structure. Above us, Virexia's star burned softly. Below, the stabilizer pulsed in balanced harmony. I had arrived alone. I had feared isolation. But somewhere between algorithm and adaptation, between human rigidity and alien evolution, I found something unexpected. Not just purpose. Not just acceptance. Home. And in the vast quiet of the Helier Verge, being the only human no longer meant being alone.